Court Road. End of it you'll find at Sircar Bridge. It's called Dual Lane. That's where they fought. What had happened was he shot better and Francis got 2 balls, as we called it, into his body. They were scooped out with a spoon or something. So he was safe because had Francis died, Hastings may have been recalled. While private duels could be fought out and these things, but the British were very careful on this. That reminds me, the first 3 builders of Calcutta, the British Empire in India, had a very funny treatment from their bosses. And that treatment continues till today. If you're smarter than your boss man, you had it. You had it. You had it. So you can't be smarter than your boss, and there's a story that I used to say, that whenever you start feeling happy with the world, God sends you a boss. So all 3 and their bosses were the East India Company and the House of Commons and the House of Lords. All 3 of them were impeached. The 3 founders of the British Empire in India, all of them went back, all of them were impeached. Clive, Hastings, and Cornwallis was not impeached, he faced charges. But it's bad enough to face severe vigilance charges, bad enough. So that's how they treat it. So anytime we feel bad about it, people who work, people like us who have such difficulties at times, we sort of justify it by saying it's a very historic thing once you cross Aden. Okay, now this guy moves on. And by 1770, Mir Qasim, I told you 1757, 1760, Mir Qasim. By 64, Mir Qasim had enough. Small correction. We associate Mir Jawhar with the surrender of everything respectable in India. Historically, that can't be established. He just did a trading solution. He didn't part with any property worth the name, any land, any territory, any sovereignty. The guy who started parting would be coming later, Mir Qasim. It's not wrong. But even Mir Qasim had enough by 1764. And of course, this part is all history, so I'll fast forward it. 64, 65, we have the last proper battle, the Battle of Buxar, joined with Oudh and the Mughal. The British defeat them fair and square. So, if Plassey was a fluke, Buxar was a reality. 65, Diwani is handed over. What does Diwani mean insofar as Calcutta is concerned? I told you the revenue rights is all the financial part of Diwani. This part was handed over. British didn't have the capacity to handle the complicated laws. And the complicated laws, they didn't just handle it. They were traders, and they said that we can't be burdened with such things like sovereign powers and extraction of money. How much percentage does it give me? What is my rate of return on the dollar, on the pound? All sorts of clever calculations. But since the Diwani slip was already in your pocket, this was sort of leased out to Indians. And the first colorful Indian that we would have is Govindaram, the black Zamindar. Govindaram Mitra, and before that there were other players also, mainly of the Punjabi Manian groups or Khatri groups, JM, so you better, the first one here, who were playing around like Govind Chand, playing around. So this was the period when you had and paid, the Diwani was just the legitimacy to collect money in the name of thy lord. This was rectified the next, when was the Sandforth as Diwan? I think 6 years after that, they were told that enough, you've had fooled around enough with the black zamindars, you stand forth. Interesting part is 1774, the governor of Bengal becomes the Governor General of India. Bengal or Calcutta's preeminence is signed, sealed and delivered. He doubles up as the Governor General of India. G of G and GG of I. Again, these two posts would split and we'd have to find a separate palace for him. It's another problem. 1774, so this is the period, and this was the period of Warren Hastings, and this is the period that we have of the most interesting person, so the age of William Jones. Now, As you can see, we just to the right. Mr. Hastings is consulting a Pandit and a Maulvi, trying to understand the laws of India as enunciated in the Shastras and the texts. They were actually ruling, so their laws applied, and these guys had also their version of what their personal laws were. This is the beginning of what we call along with William Jones, the beginning of the search for the Oriental laws and others. This would soon be overtaken by Macaulay. So enough of this bullshit to be done more long, but that's his point of view. And those who believed in Western education would win. This period was also an interesting period because laws were a little lax. The posts were actually bought and sold. Many posts. They still are, I believe, people talk about it, but anyway, thanas were actually sold. They were auctioned out. And this was not happening only during the British period, it was happening in the late Mughal period and during the Bengal Nawabs. But this had reached insane proportions. There's a story where a guy decides to marry a Mustis. Mustis means Eurasian, that's half Portuguese, half Bengali lady. And she's very, she's available for favors. So we have the stories up there in the records of two Armenians quoting her on and off. Until the two discovered each other, one was coming out of her house and they discovered, and both happened to be Armenians. So it was taken up to the judge of Calcutta who decided that she was one's property. She had a husband, she had this, and all sorts of things were going on here. But the most interesting part was most of the British didn't bring wives along with them. Most of them. So Mr. Warren Hastings did. He had a pretty, let's say, opinionated one, but what about the others? They made friends here, lots of friends. And these friends, when the first ships would start coming another 40 years later, the British ladies were horrified to see blonde-looking servants, blonde-eyed and green-eyed servant boys and girls moving around the house, and look at the husband and to the sky and things like that. So it's better than something like the American thing where you marry one and then don't find that he's already happily settled in America. So these things keep happening. Now what do we do about this blonde and blue eyes? You can't treat them like servants. A society was set up, Bengal Civil and Military Orphan Society, and the society said we must do something about this middle group. And the society came up with its own source of income. I remember this because I was once a collector, a trustee actually it's called. They set up, and so we now cross over the circular road, not from this end, a little ahead near Taj, near the race course Taj. As you go along the left you have Taj, then underneath you have Tolly's Nala, then you have the zoo, that side. Just below that part, if you notice, there starts a market that goes all the way up to Kidapur Road. It's known as Kidapur Market, but the official name is Orphanganj Market. This earning from the Orphanganj would give education to these boys. There are some little conflicts about whether they came together after. The records are not very strong at that period. An earlier attempt was made in Calcutta proper to start a free school. Free school, this was near where we have a road leading from Park Street. The name still continues. Though legally it's still known as Mirza Ghalib Street, people still call it Free School Street. Free School Street, and from there, if you notice when you go to Free School, this Free School doesn't exist, nor does it. It's still known as St. Thomas's School. This is St. Thomas's here, the one that comes in. This starts the education of these bright-looking, bright-eyed boys and girls. and by they would get absorbed into Indian society. They would be taken as Eurasians, and their bundle name for these Portuguese kids and for indeterminate groups that were fairer than most Indians would be Eurasians. At this point, I'm reminded of 2-3 people who looked like Europeans but were not. One of them was Parsis, quite a large number here. This is the original Parsi, not Sircar Irani's Irani. Iranis would come much later. The Parsis preceded. They are the ones who actually landed in our sea and Gujarat, and they set up. The Parsis were very clear that they were not European. I mean, they were not Indians, but they were neither Europeans, and they had their own. The second group was Jews. Last few remnants of Jews that we have is Sokias is Armenian. Elias, who else? Huh? Yeah. Ezra Street, these are the last of the Jewish synagogue and all that. We still have small sprinkling. They don't even have 10 numbers now to hold their congregations. So Telegraph gave the story about how they had to bring in extra numbers. The Jews were a major force once upon a time. Along with the Jews were another force, the Armenians. The Armenians had come along with the Mughals at that time, and they were continuing. The Armenians had a presence of up and down, up and down, up and down, where Bengal was concerned, Calcutta was concerned. One of the most famous Armenians of this period is the charitable Sokia Street, near Jawhar. Sokias, and we have a lot of Armenians. But if you fast forward to 20th century, you'll find another very interesting Armenian, Galston. Galston was the last successful Armenian, and he had overtaken the other Armenians who made a lot of property and money. Apkar, even we have an Apkar garden even as far as in Asansol. Then, what is this garage here in Singh? Stephen was not a European. The Stephen of Calcutta, I mean, there are 3-4 Stephens, but the most famous Stephen is actually an Armenian. Aratum. Stephen Court, next to Writer's Building, is an Armenian building. Most of the important buildings on Part-3 are Armenian. Galston mansions, Queen's mansions, these were all Armenian property. That brings me to the story of Park Street. How does Park Street come about? It comes from one of the most horrible names that you can think of. Guess the name? Burial Ground. What a beautiful street, and what a frightening name. Calcutta, St. John's Church and others soon ran out of space because people, the courageous European was dying faster than he thought. A, his dress was not appropriate. B, he didn't know how to, he was vulnerable to the mosquitoes much more than us, and the water got him, cholera, this, that. So about half were dying. There's a lovely book called The Bengal Obituary. It must be there in Victoria Memorial. We have the whole list of it, and some of the Bengal Obituary epitaphs are very interesting. There's one that I saw in this circular cemetery said about, I consulted a physic, and that is why I am where I am. I went to a doctor, and that's why I went. So it's treatment. They went with all sorts of medicine, but they were dying very fast. The stability and mortality rate was very high. And I can go into a whole list of people who had managed to die. So most of the time when you find VVIPs coming, Mr. David Cameron, of course, was an exception. He went to Akashvani, All India Radio. But others would go straight to the cemetery to see whether great-grandfather or great-grandmother had died. As if she was up there to say, hi, Jack. But anyway, we let that pass. The cemeteries. Now, when Calcutta ran out of cemeteries, it was wise decision to take it far away from Calcutta. But how do we reach from Calcutta? Incidentally, where do we stop Calcutta here? Calcutta would be stopping outside. I'm referring to a period when it would be stopping more or less around the Dalhousie Square area, the White Calcutta. And to reach those cemeteries, you had to go through jungle. To go back for a minute, let me transport you back. What was the non-British Calcutta? The non-British Calcutta referred to an axis like this. You had the sub-religion, that's my area of work, the non-formal religion of Bengal or non-formal religion of India, actually hitting you on the face before formal religion would come in. You had one road dedicated to Dharma Thakur. He's not worshipped anymore. I spent half a life studying him. And that becomes Dharamtala. You don't find that mandir there, but I'll tell you where to find it just now. And contesting along with Dharma Thakur was Mansa, Shitala, Manasa, Shitala and others. But the Naths, there were a lot of hardy folks. They smoked a lot of intoxicants. The Naths were physically therefore more powerful and could be given to fits of rage. The Naths controlled this part. One of their Babas, Baba Chaurangi. Chaurangi Road was going from north to south and you had Dharmatala intersecting, and that is where the black Calcutta, the dark Calcutta begins. And this one cuts through Chaurangi, and so a road had to be made. And you couldn't keep the body too long either. You kept him overnight. The Hindus had this smell. It's a very funny way of putting in very strong smelling, what do you call incense, and they also had this ogaru. So you could suppress the smell for some more time. But since the British refused to take it, and they had to, even at nights, there were stories of how they had to bring in whole half battalions of Masanchis and others and shout their way through to the burial ground. That was a burial ground. This burial ground would later on be converted into, by Sir Elijah Impey, to his park mansions, and the story goes on. The last part that's still there is Middleton Street, Bishop Middleton Street, that goes to Loreto House. And last slice of park that you have is perhaps Allen Garden. The little slice that you have near before the Savage General of India. That little slice is still there.